Okay, let's be real, I was head over heels for Jason, the kind of crazy in love where you'd walk through fire for the guy. Or, help him launch a tech startup from your tiny apartment while surviving on ramen noodles and the occasional pizza splurge. Jason was, well, he was Jason. Ambitious, driven, with that I'm going to change the world glint in his eyes that made my heart flutter. He had this idea, this revolutionary app, that was going to connect people in ways no one had ever imagined. Or something like that. Honestly, the tech stuff went way over my head. But I believed in him. I believed in us. So I did what any devoted fiancé would do. I quit my comfy marketing job, bye-bye dental insurance, cashed out my measly savings and became Jason's one-woman support system. I was the marketing guru, the customer service rep, the coffee fetching, spreadsheet wrangling, pep talk giving backbone of his operation. Naomi, you're a lifesaver, Jason would say, his eyes glued to his computer screen, fingers flying across the keyboard. I don't know what I'd do without you. You'd probably be starving and wearing dirty socks. I'd tease, sliding a fresh cup of coffee onto his desk. True, he'd admit with a grin. But seriously, you're amazing. This app wouldn't be happening without you. And I believed him. I was all in, invested in his dream, our dream. I worked late into the night crafting marketing campaigns, responding to user feedback, and making sure Jason had everything he needed to focus on his coding magic. Naomi, you're a marketing genius, Jason exclaimed one evening after I'd landed us a feature in a major tech blog. Our user base has doubled overnight. See? Told you I was good, I said, basking in his praise. It wasn't always easy. There were days when the stress was overwhelming, the deadlines looming, the ramen budget getting dangerously low. But we had each other, and that's all that mattered. We're going to make it, Naomi, Jason would say, his arm around my shoulders, his voice filled with conviction. We're going to build an empire together. And I believed him. I pictured us years down the line, celebrating our success. Our tiny apartment replaced by a sprawling penthouse. Our ramen dinners replaced by Michelin-starred meals. We were a team. A power couple destined for greatness. Or so I thought. Things were going great. The app was gaining traction. Investors were throwing money at us. Finally, goodbye, ramen. And Jason was practically glowing with success. We were on the cusp of something big, something life-changing. Then Isabella walked back into our lives. And everything went sideways. Isabella, Jason's ex. The one who got away. The heiress to a billion-dollar fortune. The woman who had broken his heart years ago. Apparently, she'd heard about his success and decided to reconnect. Yeah, right. She's just an old friend, Naomi, Jason said, his voice a little too casual, a little too defensive. An old friend who happens to be ridiculously wealthy and drop-dead gorgeous? I asked, raising an eyebrow. He chuckled nervously. Don't be silly. It's not like that. But it was like that. I could see it in his eyes. The way they lit up when she walked into the room, the way he hung on to her every word, the way he practically tripped over himself to impress her. And Isabella? Well, she was everything I wasn't. Elegant, sophisticated, with a wardrobe that probably cost more than my entire apartment. She had this air of effortless grace, of old money confidence that made me feel like a clumsy, awkward duckling in her presence. Naomi, darling, it's so wonderful to finally meet you, she'd say, her voice dripping with honeyed sweetness. Jason's told me so much about you. Yeah, right. Like how I was the tireless worker bee who'd helped him build his empire, while she was off gallivanting around the globe, spending her trust fund on designer clothes and exotic vacations. But then things took a turn. A serious turn. Isabella got sick. Really sick. Some rare kidney disease, the kind that makes doctors shake their heads and whisper grim prognosis. And suddenly Jason was all about Isabella. He was at the hospital every day, holding her hand, whispering sweet nothings, looking at her with that same lovesick gaze he used to reserve for me. How is she? I'd ask, my voice tight with worry and a growing sense of dread. Not good, he'd say, his voice heavy with concern. The doctors are worried. I tried to be supportive, to be understanding. But it was hard. Really hard. watching the man I loved, the man who was supposed to be building a future with me, devoting himself to another woman. A woman from his past. A woman who represented everything I wasn't. And then the whispers started. Whispers about Isabella needing a kidney transplant. About her rare blood type. About the slim chances of finding a match. "It's a long shot," Jason said, his voice filled with despair. "But we're holding out hope." Hope for what? For a miracle? For someone to magically appear with a compatible kidney? I looked at Jason. His face etched with worry, his eyes filled with a desperate longing. And in that moment a chilling thought crept into my mind. A suspicion so dark, so twisted that I almost dismissed it as paranoia. But the seed had been planted. A seed of doubt, a fear, of a growing sense, of unease. That something wasn't right. That something sinister was lurking beneath the surface of this tragic situation. It started with a headache. A nagging, persistent throb that wouldn't quit, even with a handful of painkillers. Jason, bless his oblivious heart, suggested a romantic night in. "Just you and me, babe," he said, his eyes a little too bright, his smile a little too wide. "I'll cook." Now, Jason cooking was a rare occasion, usually reserved for burnt toast and questionable pasta concoctions. But that night he whipped up a gourmet feast. Seared scallops, creamy risotto, decadent chocolate mousse. It was suspicious. "Wow, Jason, this is amazing," I said, savoring a bite of the perfectly cooked scallop. "Where did you learn to cook like this?" "Oh, just picked up a few things here and there," he said, his smile a little too smug, his eyes darting away. I should have known then. I should have seen the red flags, the warning signs. But I was blinded by love, by trust, by the years of devotion and shared dreams. The wine flowed freely. The conversation was light and easy. And the headache, well, it seemed to fade away. Until it didn't. Until it came back with a vengeance. A pounding, blinding pain. That sent me reeling. "Jason," I mumbled, my voice slurred, my vision blurring. "I don't feel so good. Just a little tired, babe," he said, his voice soothing, his hand on my back, guiding me towards the bedroom. "Lie down. I'll get you some water." The next thing I knew, I was waking. Up in a sterile white room. The harsh fluorescent lights blinding me. My body ached. My head throbbed. And a sharp, agonizing pain pulsed in my side. I tried to sit up. But I couldn't. My tiny apartment, the one I'd shared with Jason, was now Isabella's love nest. My job, well, let's just say kidney donor wasn't exactly a resume booster. I ended up on the streets. Yeah, the streets. Me, Naomi, the girl who'd always played by the rules, who dreamed of a white picket fence and 2.5 kids, was sleeping on park benches and scavenging for scraps in dumpsters. It was humbling, to say the least. The hunger was constant, the cold was relentless, and the loneliness was a crushing weight on my soul. I saw a side of life I never knew existed. A world of desperation, despair, and forgotten souls. "Hey, you got a spare cigarette?" a gruff voice would ask, a weathered hand outstretched. "Sorry," I'd mumble, my voice barely a whisper, my eyes darting away. "Need a place to stay? Got a warm bed, hot meal," a sleazy guy would offer, his eyes lingering a little too long on my shivering frame. "No, thank you," I'd say, my voice trembling, my hand clutching the pepper spray I'd bought with my last few dollars. The physical pain was bad. The incision throbbing with every step, every cough, every sleepless night. But the emotional pain was worse. The betrayal. The abandonment. The sheer injustice of it all. It was a constant ache in my chest. A gnawing emptiness that threatened to consume me. But amidst the despair, a flicker of defiance remained. I wouldn't let them win. I wouldn't let them break me. I would survive this. I would find a way to fight back. I thought about going to the police, reporting Jason, Isabella, the whole twisted scheme. But who would believe me? I had no proof. No witnesses. Just my word against theirs. And they were rich. Powerful. Connected. They'd bury me, discredit me, make me disappear. But I couldn't just let them get away with it. I had to do something. Anything. One rainy afternoon, huddled under a leaky awning, I felt a familiar twinge in my side. The pain was sharper this time, more intense. I clutched my side, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Something was wrong. Really wrong. I stumbled towards a nearby clinic, my vision blurring, my legs giving way. I collapsed on the steps, my body racked with pain, my consciousness fading. "Help me," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "Please help me." But it was too late. The darkness closed in, swallowing me whole. The last thing I saw was the rain falling, washing away the grime, the pain, the injustice. And then there was nothing. Just oblivion. Okay, so picture this. I wake up, right? But it's not the grimy alleyway where I passed out. It's my old apartment. The one I shared with Jason, before it became a shrine to his and Isabella's sickening love story. I'm in my old bed. Sunlight streaming through the window. The smell of burnt toast wafting in from the kitchen. Wait, burnt toast? Jason can't even boil water without setting off the smoke alarm. "Jason." I call out, my voice groggy with sleep. "Morning, sleephead," he chirps, bounding into the room with a tray. "Breakfast in bed for my favorite fiancé." He sets the tray down, 2 slices of blackened toast, a scrambled egg that looks suspiciously like rubber, and a mug of lukewarm coffee. It's the most unappetizing breakfast I've ever seen. But it's Jason. My Jason. The one who used to look at me like I was the only girl in the world. "What's the occasion?" I ask, my voice laced with confusion. "And since when do you cook?" He grins, that goofy boyish grin that used to melt my heart.
"No occasion."
"Just wanted to spoil you. And hey, I'm a man of many hidden talents." I stare at him, my mind reeling. This isn't right. This can't be right. The last thing I remember is collapsing on the clinic steps. The pain. The despair. Then, "What's the date?" I ask, my voice trembling. He frowns. June 12th, 2020. Why? But that was 5 years ago. 5 years before the betrayal. The surgery. The everything. "Naomi? Are you all right?" Jason asks, his brow furrowed with concern. "You look pale." I just had a weird dream." I stammer, my mind racing. "A really vivid dream." He sits beside me, taking my hand. "It's okay, babe. Just a dream. I'm here now." I look at him. At his familiar face. His kind eyes. His hand warm in mine. It's him. The Jason I fell in love with. The Jason I devoted my life to. The Jason who ripped my heart out and stomped on it. But he doesn't know that yet. Not in this timeline. Not in this reality. I'm back. Back in time. Given a second chance. A chance to rewrite the script. To change the ending. To get my revenge. The internal struggle is real. Part of me wants to scream. To confront him. To expose his true nature. But another part, a colder, more calculating part, whispers a different strategy. Play along. Make him fall for you again. Harder this time. Gain his trust. His love. His dependence. And then take it all away. Leave him with nothing. Just like he did to me. It's a twisted plan. A dark path. But the anger. The hurt. The betrayal. Fuels me. Consumes me. It drives me. I won't be a victim this time. I won't be weak. Naive. Trusting. I will be strong. Cunning. Ruthless. I will have my revenge. "Jason," I say, my voice soft, my eyes meeting his. "I love you. More than anything." He smiles, his eyes filled with adoration. "I love you too, Naomi. More than words can say." And in that moment I know. I've made my choice. I'm going to play the long game. I'm going to make him pay for what he did to me. And this time I'm going to win. Okay, playing the doting fiancé wasn't exactly a stretch. I mean, I had been genuinely in love with Jason once. But this time there was a twist. A cold, hard layer of calculation beneath the surface. I ramped up the supportive girlfriend routine to level 10. Homemade meals, edible ones this time. Back rubs after long coding sessions. Pep talks to fuel a small army. Jason, bless his clueless heart, lapped it up. "Naomi, you're incredible," he'd say, his eyes shining with gratitude. "I don't know how you do it all." "Anything for you, babe." I'd reply, my voice dripping with honeyed sweetness, while mentally adding another tally mark to my revenge plan checklist. I listened patiently to his endless ramblings about algorithms and user interfaces, nodding and smiling at all the right moments. Even though I secretly wanted to shove his laptop out the window. I even started dressing differently, trading my comfy jeans and t-shirts for more feminine outfits. the kind that made his eyes linger a little too long. "Wow, Naomi, you look amazing," he stammered one evening, his cheeks flushing as I walked into the room wearing a dress I'd borrowed from Isabella's closet during a friendly visit. "Just trying to keep things interesting," I purred, batting my lashes innocently. And then one evening, as we were celebrating a major investment deal, Jason took my hand, his eyes shining with love and gratitude. "Naomi," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" He pulled out a ring, sparkling diamond that looked eerily similar to the one he'd stolen from me in the future. I stared at it, my heart pounding in my chest, my mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. "Yes, Jason," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Yes, I will." He slipped the ring on my finger, his smile wide, his eyes filled with happiness. And as I looked at him, at the man I was deceiving, the man I was using, the man I still loved, I felt a pang of guilt, a flicker of doubt. But then I remembered the pain, the betrayal, the life I had lost, and the resolve hardened within me. I would see this through. I would have my revenge, even if it meant breaking my own heart in the process. Jason's family, the Vander Woods, were old money, the kind of old money that whispered of trust funds, summer houses in the Hamptons, and generations of effortless superiority. They'd never quite approved of me, a commoner with no pedigree to speak of. But now, with Isabella out of the picture for now, I had a chance to win them over. And let me tell you, I played that game like a virtuoso. I brushed up on my etiquette, mastered the art of polite conversation, and even learned to appreciate the subtle nuances of vintage wine, though secretly I still preferred a good old-fashioned beer. "Naomi, darling, you're a natural," Mrs. Vanderwood gushed, after a particularly successful dinner party where I charmed the pants off their stuffy friends. "Jason is so lucky to have you." "Thank you, Mrs. Vanderwood," I'd reply, my smile demure, my eyes sparkling with calculated innocence. "I'm just trying to be the best fiancé I can be." Played to their expectations, their prejudices, their insecurities. I praised their impeccable taste, their philanthropic endeavors, their perfectly manicured lawns. I even offered to help with their annual charity gala, organizing the guest list, arranging the floral arrangements, and generally making myself indispensable. "Naomi, you're a lifesaver," Mrs. Vanderwood exclaimed, her voice laced with gratitude. Isabella was never interested in these sorts of things. Bingo. Subtle digs at Isabella were my specialty. I'd casually mention her extravagant spending habits, her lack of practical skills, her general air of entitlement. Nothing too obvious, just enough to plant a seed of doubt in their minds. "Of course, Isabella has such a unique sense of style," I'd say with a sigh. "I could never pull off those designer gowns like she does." "Oh, darling, you have your own charm," Mrs. Vanderwood would reply, her voice laced with a hint of disapproval. Understated elegance. Translation: "You're not a spoiled brat who throws money around like confetti." Point for Naomi. I even managed to win over Mr. Vanderwood, a man who valued ambition and business acumen above all else. I'd casually drop hints about my marketing strategies, my insights into the tech world, my contributions to Jason's success. "You have a good head on your shoulders, Naomi," he'd say, his gruff voice softening slightly. "Jason needs someone like you to keep him grounded." Grounded. Translation: "You're not a flighty socialite who will distract him from his business empire." Another point for Naomi. By the time Isabella was well enough to re-enter the social scene, I'd firmly established myself as the ideal Vanderwood daughter-in-law, the perfect blend of charm, intelligence, and ambition. And Isabella? Well, she was just the ex-girlfriend, the one who got away, the one who was no longer needed. The look on her face when she realized she'd been outmaneuvered? Priceless. Okay, let's be honest. Playing nice with Isabella was about as enjoyable as a root canal. But, hey, a girl's got to do what a girl's got to do, right? Especially when revenge is on the menu. Isabella, with her perfectly coiffed hair and designer wardrobe, was the epitome of effortless elegance. But, beneath that polished exterior, I sensed a deep-seated insecurity, a vulnerability that I could exploit. "Oh, Isabella, that dress is simply divine," I'd gush, my voice dripping with faux admiration. You look absolutely stunning. She'd preen under my praise, her smile widening. Thank you, darling. It's Valentino. Valentino, I'd repeat, my voice hushed with awe. Of course. I could never pull off something so sophisticated. And there it was, the seed of doubt, the subtle implication that she was out of my league, that I was just a simple girl who couldn't compete with her effortless glamour. Ide casuali. Mention Jason's long working hours, his dedication to his company, his intense focus on building his empire. He's so driven, I'd say with a sigh. Sometimes I worry he works too hard. But I understand, of course. Building a successful business takes sacrifices. Isabella's smile would falter slightly, her eyes clouding with a hint of worry. Yes, of course, she'd murmur, her gaze drifting towards Jason, who was usually engrossed in a conversation with some potential investor. I'd make sure to be seen with Jason at social events, my hand on his arm, my smile radiant, my eyes locked with his. I'd laugh at his jokes a little too loudly, compliment his achievements a little too effusively, and generally make it clear that I was the woman by his side, the woman he adored. You two are so adorable together. Friend of Isabella's remarked one evening, her voice laced with a hint of envy. We are, aren't we? I'd reply, my smile widening, my eyes meeting Isabella's across the room. The jealousy was palpable, a delicious undercurrent of tension that fueled my satisfaction. I could see the doubt creeping into her eyes, the insecurity gnawing at her confidence. And then there were the accidental encounters, a chance meeting at the same boutique, a coincidental reservation at the same restaurant, a surprise run-in at the gym. Each encounter, a carefully orchestrated performance, designed to remind Isabella of my presence, my connection to Jason, my growing influence in his life. Oh, Isabella, what a surprise! I'd exclaim, my voice feigning shock. Fancy seeing you here. Naomi, she'd say, her voice tight, her smile strained. Yes. What a coincidence. Coincidence? Or a carefully calculated move in the game of revenge? The answer was clear, at least to me. And as I watched Isabella's carefully constructed facade crumble, I knew that my plan was working. She was falling apart. And I was just getting started. Okay, so Alexander, Jason's biggest business rival. Think Gordon Gekko, but with slightly better hair and a devastatingly charming smile. He was everything Jason wasn't: confident, charismatic, and dripping with old money swagger. And he was exactly who I needed to take my revenge to the next level. My initial interactions with Alexander were purely strategic. I needed information, leverage, a way to subtly sabotage Jason's plans. And Alexander, with his insider connections and his burning desire to crush Jason, was the perfect pawn. Mr. Sterling, I'd say, my voice cool and professional as I extended my hand. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. The pleasure is all mine, Miss Thorne. He'd reply, his eyes lingering a little too long on mine. I've heard interesting things about you. Oh, I'd ask, raising an eyebrow. And what might those be? Let's just say I admire your dedication. He'd say, a hint of amusement in his voice. Our meetings were always carefully orchestrated, held in dimly lit bars or exclusive restaurants, the kind of places where secrets were whispered and deals were made. I'd play the role of the ambitious fiancé, eager to learn, eager to impress, eager to prove my worth. Jason tells me you're expanding into the Asian market. I'd say, casually swirling my martini. Yes, it's a challenging venture, he'd reply, his eyes assessing me. But the potential rewards are significant. Jason's very excited about it. I'd say, my voice laced with just the right amount of doubt. He's been working day and night on the details. Is he now? Alexander would murmur, a hint of skepticism in his voice. I'd subtly plant seeds of doubt, questioning Jason's strategies, hinting at potential weaknesses in his plans. I was surprised by how easily we connected, how much we had in common. He was intelligent, witty, and surprisingly charming. You know, Miss Thorne, he'd say one evening, his voice low, I have a feeling you're not quite as devoted as you seem. I'd meet his gaze, my heart pounding in my chest. What do you mean? I'd ask, my voice barely a whisper. Let's just say I have a good eye for ambition, he'd reply, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. He saw through my facade. He knew I was playing a game. But he didn't seem to mind. In fact, he seemed intrigued. As our relationship deepened, the lines between strategy and something more began to blur. I found myself looking forward to our meetings. Not just for the information and leverage, but for the conversations, the laughter, the undeniable chemistry that crackled between us. You're playing a dangerous game, Miss Thorne, he'd say one night, his hand brushing against mine. I like danger, I'd reply, my voice husky. He'd lean closer, his eyes searching mine. So do I. The attraction was undeniable. A forbidden fire that threatened to consume us both. But I couldn't afford to get distracted, to let my feelings cloud my judgment. I had a plan, a mission, a revenge to enact. And Alexander, despite his charm, his intelligence, his undeniable appeal, was just a pawn in my game. Or so I told myself. Okay, so Jason's been extra attentive lately, cooking elaborate dinners again, suspiciously gourmet, whispering sweet nothings that now sound more like threats, and generally acting like the devoted fiancé he so clearly wasn't. The charade was getting old, and frankly I was getting bored. It was time for the final act. I'd known for weeks that Isabella's health was declining again. The whispers about her needing another transplant had started circulating in their social circles. And I knew with a chilling certainty that Jason was planning to repeat history. He was going to try to drug me again, steal my kidney, and give it to Isabella. The thought made my blood run cold. But I was ready for him. I'd been playing him for 5 years, building my case, gathering my evidence, preparing for this moment. Naomi, darling, I've made your favorite, Jason announced one evening, presenting a steaming dish that looked suspiciously like the risotto he'd served me 5 years ago, the night he drugged me. Oh, how thoughtful, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. But I'm not very hungry tonight. Nonsense, he said, his smile a little too bright. You need to eat. You've been working so hard. I'm fine, I insisted, pushing the plate away. Really, I'm just not in the mood for risotto. He frowned, his smile faltering. But I made it especially for you. I appreciate the gesture, I said, my voice cold. But I'm not eating it. He stared at me, his eyes narrowing. What's wrong? I know what you're planning, Jason, I said, my voice steady, my gaze unwavering. His face paled. His eyes darted away. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play dumb with me, I spat. I know you're cheating on me with Isabella. I know she needs another kidney. And I know you're planning to steal mine. He was silent, his face etched with guilt and fear. How did you know? He stammered. Let's just say I have my sources, I replied, a hint of a smile playing on my lips. He panicked, his eyes wide with terror. Naomi, please, he begged. You don't understand. Isabella is dying. I had to do it. I had to save her. Save her? I scoffed. By sacrificing me? By stealing my life? It was a mistake, he pleaded. I didn't mean to hurt you. A mistake. I echoed, my voice filled with disgust. You drugged me, Jason. You cut me open. You stole my kidney. And you call that a mistake? He was silent, his face etched with shame and guilt. I loved you, Jason, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I gave you everything, my heart, my soul, my loyalty, my support. And you betrayed me. You used me. You threw me away like I was nothing. I'm sorry, he sobbed. Please, Naomi, forgive me. Forgive you. I laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. You want forgiveness? After what you did to me? After what you tried to do? I'll do anything, he pleaded. Just please don't ruin me. You already ruined yourself, Jason, I said, my voice cold hard. You made your choice. And now you're going to face the consequences. I pulled out my phone, the recording app already running. I've recorded this conversation, Jason, I said, my voice clear and strong. Everything you said will be used against you. I filed a police report, detailing Jason's crimes and providing the recording as evidence. I contacted his family, exposing his infidelity, his betrayal, his attempted murder. They were shocked. Horrified. Disgusted. They believed me. And then I went public. I shared my story with the media, exposing Jason's crimes to the world. The scandal was immediate, explosive, devastating. His reputation was ruined. His business crumbled. His life was in tatters. Alexander, ever the opportunist, swooped in, acquiring Jason's company for a fraction of its former value. Jason was arrested, charged with assault, attempted murder, and a host of other crimes. As he was led away in handcuffs, he looked at me, his eyes filled with desperation and regret. "Naomi," he choked. "Please. Enjoy your new accommodations, Jason," I said, my voice cold hard. "I hear the food isn't great." I turned and walked away, leaving him to face the consequences of his actions. My revenge was complete. And as I stepped out into the sunshine, I felt a sense of closure, a sense of peace. I had taken back my life, my power, my dignity, and I had done it on my own terms. Okay, so the dust had settled. Jason was behind bars. His empire crumbled. His reputation in tatters. My revenge was complete. And honestly, it felt anticlimactic. Like I'd spent so long plotting, scheming, and manipulating that the actual moment of triumph felt strangely empty. I expected a surge of satisfaction, a feeling of vindication. But instead there was just a hollow echo. Jason's downfall didn't fill the void inside me. It didn't erase the pain, the betrayal, the trauma. It just was. I needed to move on. I needed to rebuild my life, to heal, to find my own happiness. And that, I realized, was going to be a lot harder than taking down Jason. The media frenzy was intense. Reporters were hounding me. Everyone wanted Naomi's story. I did a few interviews, told my truth. But mostly, I just wanted to disappear, to escape the spotlight, to be alone. And then there was Alexander. He'd been surprisingly supportive throughout the whole ordeal. Not in an "I told you so" kind of way, but in a quiet, understanding, genuinely caring way. "You did what you had to do, Naomi," he'd said after the news broke, his voice low, his eyes filled with something I couldn't quite decipher. "You survived. You're strong." I didn't feel strong. "I feel empty," I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. He took my hand, his touch warm and comforting. "That's okay," he said. "It's okay to feel. It's okay to grieve. It takes time to heal." I had taken control of my life, overcome a traumatic experience, and found love, happiness, and success on my own terms. And that, I knew, was the most powerful revenge of all.